And this is where I found that I was in limbo with my training. I took the painkillers, I did the icing, I backed off training, but I found that I was just getting weaker on my lifts and the pain wasn't really going away. And it wasn't until I did some of these exercises that I'm about to show you. What's going on YouTube, it's Jason, and in this video we're going to be discussing rotator cuff injuries, but more specifically how to manage them and train around them. Now, for those of you that have had rotator cuff injuries, you know how frustrating and debilitating they can be. For those of you who are not so familiar with it, your rotator cuff is essentially a group of muscles and tendons that help to hold the shoulder joint in place and also help you move and rotate the arm and shoulder. Now, when this joint becomes irritated or even worse, damaged, it can be the most uncomfortable thing in the world, and it affects almost everything you do in the gym. Now, I've battled with rotator cuff injuries on and off for years. It's really common amongst lifters and it tends to manifest in one or all of these three ways. The first is pain when you're lifting, particularly when you're doing pressing movements, either horizontally or vertically. The second is weakness when you're lifting or weakness when you're trying to move or rotate the arm. And the final one, when it's really bad, is pain at rest. Now, this can happen when you're sitting still or when you're sleeping. When you forget yourself and you lie on your shoulder when you're sleeping, you wake up with the sharpest pain. Now, when you go to a GP or a physio with this injury, they'll typically tell you to back off exercise, which is good advice, and obviously ice the shoulder, which I do from time to time anyway, just to manage the pain. They'll tell you that you can take painkillers and things like that, but they don't really give you many remedies or alternatives when it comes to actually lifting and progressing with your weights. And this is where I found that I was in limbo with my training. I took the painkillers, I did the icing, I backed off training, but I found that I was just getting weaker on my lifts and the pain wasn't really going away. And it wasn't until I did some of these exercises that I'm about to show you that I found that I was still able to progress with my training without aggravating the injury. So first amendment is the seated military press. So standard seated military press, you start off horizontal and you push all the way through. But again, this puts a lot of pressure on the shoulder and the rotator cuff. So what I do instead is I twist the dumbbells so they're now vertical and I press upwards, keeping the elbows and shoulders soft at the top, not fully extending. So the next exercise is flat dumbbell press. Standard flat dumbbell press has the dumbbells horizontal and pressing upwards. But again, this puts a lot of pressure on the rotator cuff. So what we're looking to do is twist the dumbbells, not quite vertical, but somewhere in between, probably slightly diagonal. And this allows for a lot more of a smooth pressing move and puts a lot less pressure on the rotator cuff. So the next amendment is on the lat pull down. So standard lat pull down has you using an overhand grip and pulling the bar down towards your chest. This is a good move for the lats, but again, not rotator cuff friendly, as you really feel the rotator cuff pinch. So we're going to change our grip from an overhand grip to an underhand grip, and we're going to pull in like so. Again, you still get that lat activation, a bit more on the bicep, but a lot less pressure on the rotator cuff. So another amendment is on the lateral raise. So dumbbell lateral raises, an absolute staple for the shoulders, especially when it comes to developing shoulder width. But again, not very friendly for the rotator cuff. So instead, we're going to go over to the cables and do some other alternatives. So the cable lateral raise is a great alternative to the dumbbell lateral raise and puts a lot less pressure on the rotator cuff. So you can either perform this with a cable in front of you like so, lifting with good form, or you can perform it with a cable behind you, holding onto the pole again, leaning slightly out and lifting away from the body like so. Personally, I much prefer the one in front of the body. I feel like it's a lot more natural and allows me to maintain a lot more control through the shoulder. So in terms of exercises that you can actually do to strengthen the rotator cuff, there are 3 that I generally use. Of course there are many, but these are my 3 favorites. So the first is when you externally rotate outwards, keeping the elbow close to the rib cage. You can do this either with a dumbbell or with a resistance band at home if you tie it to a door or pole or anything. Again, very good for rotator cuff strength. Another one you can do is keeping the elbow at shoulder height. You can twist outwards and backwards. This one is called a Cuban style press, and it externally rotates and strengthens the rotator cuff. Another exercise which is both great for shoulder development in terms of rear delts and laterals, and also helps to strengthen the rotator cuff without putting any pressure on, is the face pull. So we hold the ropes in an overhand grip and we look to pull it towards our forehead. Again, a great exercise that you can tag on to the end of a shoulder workout, but also use as part of your rehab plan. So a lot of people advise to do the rotator cuff strengthening stuff before you press, before you do a bench press and overhead press. I actually disagree with this. I find that when you do it before a workout, it actually exhausts the muscle that you're about to train, and you start to fatigue or fail a lot sooner in the workout. What I do instead, and what I advise, is do your rotator cuff strengthening stuff after the workout, after you've done your main compound exercises, or at a separate time of day, or even better, on a different day. That way you can actually strengthen the joint without impacting your strength or your workout. As a rule of thumb, if you have a rotator cuff injury, I would avoid all barbell pressing until you're further down the line in terms of rehab. The problem with barbell pressing, whether it's bench press or military press, is that it locks your shoulders in one position. And so if you feel pain, you haven't really got much wiggle room. Dumbbells, on the other hand, allow for a greater range of motion, so you can adjust your position to a place that is much less painful. So yeah, that's it. If you do have a rotator cuff injury, make sure you get it checked out by a physio, get some advice, go through the rehab and all that kind of stuff. If your rotator cuff injury is really severe, the only solution really is managing pain and or probably surgery. But in the meantime, by doing the exercises that are recommended, you can still make progress with your training and your strength. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like it, comment below for the algorithm, it massively helps. Please subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.